And you were fired just a few hours after you told the Deputy Attorney General that you could not go along with this request.
Within hours, yes.
Now they're disputing your account. They're calling you a liar. You filed a FOIA request to demonstrate exactly what happened. Have you gotten the documents back yet?
I have not gotten any of the communications between myself and members of Mr. Blanche's staff, which illustrate that everything I have ever said about this matter is true.
And we have some of your contemporaneous communications with your own colleagues that corroborate.
That's right. I did, pursuant to FOIA, get some documents that were in possession of the Office of the Pardon Attorney, and they also corroborate my account.
Donald Trump has a long history of law breaking, both as a private citizen and during his presidency. Criminal behavior and corruption seem to be central to his approach, yet he has little tolerance for being called out on it. It's not surprising, as criminals often don't want to face the consequences of their actions. Recently, a Republican-appointed judge criticized Trump harshly for one of the most egregious criminal acts of his presidency, leaving him visibly upset. Let's dive into the details. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me now, before we get into the order that was passed down by this Republican app-appointed judge. I want to hear from Jamie Raskin, who yesterday shared important and really impactful testimony about the attack and the assault that is coming from Donald Trump's DOJ on the rest of America, all to intimidate us. And this clip right here.
Thank you very much. Ms. Oyer, the DOJ tried to stop you from coming today because they were very eager to silence your voice. You were fired hours after you refused to agree to the Deputy Attorney General's demand that you sign your name to a memo and that you recommend that Mel Gibson, a convicted domestic abuser who also happens to be a friend of Donald Trump and his special ambassador to Hollywood, get all of his gun rights restored. Is that right?
That's right.
And you refused to be complicit in that sequence of events because you had serious concerns. You said, quote, "He is the profile of exactly who you would not recommend for this type of relief," citing his history of domestic violent abuse, alcohol abuse, and so on. Is that right?
That is correct.
And you were fired just a few hours after you told the Deputy Attorney General that you could not go along with this request.
Within hours, yes.
Now they're disputing your account. They're calling you a liar. You filed a FOIA request to demonstrate exactly what happened. Have you gotten the documents back yet?
I have not gotten any of the communications between myself and members of Mr. Blanche's staff, which illustrate that everything I have ever said about this matter is true.
And we have some of your contemporaneous communications with your own colleagues that corroborate.
That's right. I did, pursuant to FOIA, get some documents that were in possession of the Office of the Pardon Attorney, and they also corroborate my account.
All right. Then they had sent 2 armed marshals to your home to try to intimidate you with a letter telling you not to come today. Why did you decide to come?
I came because I don't want to be complicit in what is happening inside the Department of Justice, which is the misuse of the resources of the department to do political favors for friends of the president, for loyalists, and I just don't believe that that's right, and I don't want to be part of it, so I feel that I need to speak up.
Your courage is heroic to us, and I want to say to you and your family, thank you. And we are with you, and we're going to stand by you. Just this past weekend, we saw another shocking example of retaliation. DOJ suspended the prosecutor who had stated in court that a man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia of Maryland, had been erroneously deported to El Salvador as an administrative error and imprisoned there, where he faces serious danger and gang violence. The judge in the case demanded that the Trump administration seek Garcia's return to the United States, and the administration is, despite confession of its error, arguing to prevent Mr. Garcia's return, saying he's out of the custody of the United States, and they wash the hands of the matter. Ms. Young, is there any doubt in your mind that this prosecutor's suspension was retaliation simply for speaking the truth in court, as this prosecutor was sworn to do?
That's what the facts seem to suggest.
Well, I think that all of these events should stir the conscience of America, and we thank you all for stepping forward now to sound a cry about what's taking place. I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.
It is all about fear for Donald Trump. This is something that we talk about a lot, how insecure he is about himself. And so how he has to take it out on us. He knows his power is waning. He knows Republicans are turning on him. The only thing he has left is to try to break the law as much as possible and use the corrupt judges that he's put in place to do it. But there are still some left with a backbone willing to stand up to him. And that is what we saw in an article we're going to check out right here, Path of Lawlessness. Reagan appointed Judge Barry's Trump DOJ in scathing. Ruling over the weekend, a Justice Department attorney was put on administrative leave after acknowledging in court that he'd never been given a satisfactory answer for why the U.S. government couldn't return a wrongfully deported immigrant from Venezuela who had been residing in Maryland. Now, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals is scolding the DOJ's behavior in a new ruling. In a unanimous decision on Monday, the court denied President Donald Trump's administration's efforts to resist returning Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States by midnight. On Monday, wrote Politico, an appointee of former President Ronald Reagan was particularly scathing in his reaction to government claims that it could not possibly bring Garcia back to the United States. Despite acknowledging his wrongful deportation, the government rightfully concedes that it was an error and a mistake to ignore the process, Wilkinson wrote. And if it is truly a mistake, one would expect the government to do what it can do to rectify it. Most of us attempt to undo to the extent that we can the mistakes that we have made. But to the best of my knowledge, the government has made no attempts here. The facts of this case thus present the potential for a disturbing loophole, namely that the government could whisk individuals to foreign prisons in violations of court orders and then contend, invoking its Article 2 powers, that it is no longer their custodian and there's nothing that can be done. It takes no small amount of imagination to understand that this is a path of perfect lawlessness, one that courts cannot condone. The court also scolded the government for penalizing its own attorney, who it charged was being targeted for his candor to the court of note. In response to this candid response by the government attorney to the district court's inquiry, that attorney has been put on administrative leave, ostensibly for a lack of zealous advocacy. The ruling said in a footnote citing the CNN report about the DOJ lawyer, this is clearly the intention of the Trump administration. This is what I've come back to, intimidation. That is the point. They want to create these broad powers that they are consolidating in the White House, so Donald Trump can do whatever he wants. And Republicans have, as they always are, been spineless in allowing Donald Trump to take those powers. That's what the tariff vote was all about. That Republicans are trying to claw back now that they're seeing Donald Trump wrecking not only the economy, but their political future ahead of the midterms, which unfortunately they care more about than their constituents. This is what Donald Trump wants. This is also, unfortunately, what he was able to achieve through the most corrupt court we have ever had in this country, which handed down a ruling that Donald Trump was pretty happy about in this crazed post. Right here, Trump wrote, "The Supreme Court has upheld the rule of law in our nation by allowing a president, whoever that may be, to be able to secure our borders and protect our families and our country itself. A great day for justice in America." That is not what happened. The Supreme Court, handpicked by Donald Trump, allowed him to continue with his unconstitutional action very clearly. That is what's happening here, and that little bitty tried to slide in whoever that president may be. Well, that doesn't apply when Joe Biden wanted to do something that the court viewed as unconstitutional, like I don't know, forgive student loans. It was a massive freakout and immediately put to a stop by this Supreme Court. Could Donald Trump do that? Probably if he wanted to, when Joe Biden tried to find workarounds to make sure people had access to their reproductive freedom. The Supreme Court was always trying to obstruct him every step of the way. Donald Trump, on the other hand, can take whatever unconstitutional action he wants to deport lawful permanent residents and then oopsie and say, we can't get him back. That's the dynamic at play here. Donald Trump is being aided and abetted by this court to allow him to break the law. They are complicit. Talk about impeaching judges. Next time we have a Democratic president, I don't know, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Olo doesn't sound too bad to me. That's something for a different day. But this is what we're seeing right now. The intimidation of all branches of government, but especially the judiciary. Donald Trump is going after lawyers because he does not want anyone fighting back against him. And we saw one of those stories presented before Congress, just a really devastating and scary clip right here.
Hearing which Republicans on neither side of the Capitol were willing to call. Special thanks to our witnesses today. Your bravery is inspiring to an anxious nation today. Even in the face of great pressure, each of you has stood tall and held fast to your oath to uphold the Constitution and the integrity of the legal profession. Just as the president has crashed the stock market with his illegal tariffs, he has crashed the justice system with his dreadful appointments and vindictive policies. He's filled the leadership of the Department of Justice with his personal lawyers, unapologetically extremist sycophants like Kash Patel and Ed Martin, who elevate their devotion to Trump over any semblance of fidelity to the Constitution, the rule of law, and the rules of professional responsibility. Our witnesses are people who have refused to bow down and be complicit in the way so many of our colleagues have been complicit. The president fires dozens of DOJ lawyers simply for doing their jobs in prosecuting the January 6th insurrectionists who violently assaulted and wounded more than 140 of our police officers. The Republicans say nothing. The president issues executive orders banning disfavored lawyers and law firms from federal buildings, federal courthouses, federal employment, and federal security clearances unless they offer him blind loyalty and millions of dollars in free pro bono services for his pro malum causes. And the Republicans say nothing. Trump sacked 18 inspectors general who saved us $91 billion in actual waste, fraud, and abuse last year. His team gutted the Office of Public Integrity and suspended enforcement of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. They withdrew prosecution of New York City Mayor Adams on serious bribery and corruption charges because he formed an alliance with Trump, causing 7 top prosecutors to resign their offices, led by Danielle Sassoon, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, who clerked for Justice Scalia and was an active member of the Federalist Society. Our GOP colleagues are silent about these scandalous offenses. But House Republicans are outspoken about this. Many are calling for impeachment of the judges who've rendered 56 preliminary injunctions or temporary restraining orders against this reign of fear and terror. The president and Elon Musk go online and call them radical left rogue judges. Even Judge Boasberg, a pillar of the bar and chief judge of the D.C. District Court, who was first appointed to the bench by President Bush and was Justice Kavanaugh's roommate at Yale. We have only impeached 15 judges in the entire history of the United States, always for corruption offenses, bribery, tax evasion, habitual drunkenness, not even occasional drunkenness, habitual drunkenness, never for doctrinal disagreement with their rulings, much less when their rulings are manifestly correct. As Chief Justice Roberts put it a few weeks ago, the proper response to a decision you disagree with in the district court is to appeal the decision, not to impeach the judge. They're not making America great again, but they're definitely making the government corrupt again. We're grateful to you, witnesses, for having the courage to speak up against this outrageous corruption of our justice system as it came to affect you, and we're eager to hear your important stories. You will teach America how to stand tall. Ms. Oyer, I understand the Deputy Attorney General tried to send armed marshals to your home at night to deliver a clear message, not to speak to us at today's hearing. And yet, I see you here today undaunted and unbowed, proving to Mr. Blanche and any other Trump official that you can't bully and silence everyone. That kind of courage is contagious, but we must emphasize to a watchful nation that courage is not the opposite of fear. Real courage, in fact, is experiencing all the fear, all the terror of these official threats and harassment, registering the fear of vigilante and online attacks, metabolizing the fear of your own government hounding you, but then pressing on anyway with conviction and passion for what you know to be right and lawful and just. No, courage, which is a virtue, is not the opposite of fear, which is an emotion, and indeed a necessary and adaptive emotion. Courage is a virtue, and it's the opposite of cowardice, which is a vice. The worst cowards are the tyrants and despots themselves who choose to terrify other people because they have allowed their own terrible fears and insecurities to turn them into monstrous, deformed, and cruel people. But the people who enable tyrants and despots, who do their bidding and work their will and flatter them and bow and scrape before them, they are cowards too, undoubtedly, at least if they have any choice in the matter. Every authoritarian regime runs on lies and runs on fear. Every authoritarian regime fears the truth and fears people who act justly and defiantly based on the truth. And that means they fear people like you and what you have to say to your fellow citizens. Thank you for recognizing the fear of this moment, feeling it, and nonetheless deciding to go ahead and act with courage and composure against the tyrant and his accomplices. I yield back to my very good friend, Senator Schiff, and I turn it over to Mr. Durbin for his opening statement.
This is about fear and intimidation, not just the actions the Trump administration might take, but the things they can stop you from doing in response. What matters most to them is the preemptive surrender, getting law firms, universities, and other institutions to fold and comply. This is why it's crucial for us to stand our ground and show these organizations that we are the majority. If you think Donald Trump is powerful, just wait until you see the strength we have. And that's what we're going to be talking about on the show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.